We all want to find love, don't we? And with all the love TV shows, it seems easier than ever to find you a loved one while also being broadcasted online. If you have ever considered going on to a love TV show to find the love of your life, whether or not you think it's possible, I would highly suggest that you do not go on Love is Blind. Why, you may ask, is because I actually have the contract that Love is Blind participants have to sign before they're even ever picked for the show. So they're agreeing to these things, hoping to get onto the show without ever knowing if they're going to get picked. We're going to take a look at the contract and see everything that these contestants have to agree to, what kind of liabilities that they're subjected to, how much each of them are getting paid, and if you do something wrong, are you going to be liable to pay them any money? Well, if you follow my live streams, you know that there are several Love is Blind lawsuits going on. The most recent one being by Renee Poche, who actually attached the contract that all of the contestants have to sign prior to ever being considered to be featured on the show. And we're going to dive into it. If you do not know who I am Boss Attorney Bree, and on this channel, we break down celebrity lawsuits and make them fun and easy to understand. This contract is brought to you by Renee Poche, who was a participant on the last season of Love is Blind. She is suing Love is Blind, basically claiming that the contract is unconscionable and it should not be enforceable, and she should not be paying them $4 million for her alleged breaches. Her claim is that she was subjected to an abusive partner that Delirium actually knew about and caused her safety to be in jeopardy. The facts alleged in the complaint are absolutely insane. If you've missed it, make sure you check out the video linked down below to learn about all of the facts that she's alleging. To give you a brief summary, Renee Poche is alleging that her safety was put in jeopardy by Carter Wall, the man that she matched with behind the walls in the pod. She is claiming that after they got out of the pod, she was subjected to DV and substance abuse that the producers, Delirium, knew about, but they would not let her out of the contract, and they threatened that she would have to pay money if she ever left the show without their permission. I don't know what y'all think, but I think that safety reasons would be a valid reason to be able to quit the show without any liability to Renee Poche. And all of a sudden, Delirium is suing her for $4 million because she spoke out about the safety concerns that she had with the show. Let's jump into the crazy things that the participants had to agree to in order to be featured on the show. And y'all, let me tell you, it's going to get bad, then it's going to be a little bit okay, and then it's going to get bad again. So if you're ready to dive in, here we go. Love is Blind is a reality Netflix show which the participants go on there to find love. The men and women try to find love without ever seeing the person that they're going to fall in love with. Hence why it's called Love is Blind. They are actually talking to each other behind a wall. The whole premise of the show is to fall in love, and the participants have to get engaged after they come out what they call the pods, the rooms that they communicate with each other in before they're actually able to meet. Once they are out of the pods and engaged, the cameras follow them around for about 4 weeks, and at the end of the 4 weeks or 30 days, the participants have to decide whether or not they want to marry this person who they maybe talked to for about 4 weeks behind a wall and then lived with for about 4 weeks, but other than that, they're supposed to not know each other at all. And if that's not crazy, to be considered for the show, you actually have to sign that participant release and agreement that we talked about earlier. And let's talk about some of the crazy things that are actually in the contract. I'm going to use my handy dandy iPad to go through because it's a lot that you have to agree to. Let's start with the requirements to even be considered for the show. Some of them are normal, but other ones are a little bit feisty, okay? The first requirement actually shocks me because you only have to be 18 years old to join this show. Most of the time, the people that they show are like mid-20s to up from there, maybe 50 at the max. But Don't you think it's strange that they would allow an 18-year-old to go onto a show to get engaged, especially when most of the contestants are mid-20s? Not so surprising. You also have to be a US citizen. You can't have felonies or any restraining orders against you, which is crazy because Renee Poche is actually alleging that she was put into DV situations, which makes me think that the guy that she was matched with, Carter Wall, may have some of these issues that this agreement is saying that the contestants cannot have, like i.e. maybe some felonies. Let's see what other requirements you have to have. You cannot be a candidate for public office because, yeah, we would hate to see Donald Trump on this show. You cannot be an employee of Delirium, and your family and friends cannot either. That makes a lot of sense to me. The contestants must make themselves available for pre-production, production, and post-production, which seems a bit obvious. And this one is very important because the participants have to be willing to undergo medical examinations, psychological examinations, health questionnaires, and background checks, which is interesting because Renee Poche actually trusted the production in that they did these psychological exams and medical exams to weed out the people with the red flags, which again, she is accusing Carter Wall of having some issues, some red flags that should have been screened out through a psychological exam. The participants have to agree that they will not participate in another program like a love show or a competition show for at least 12 months. They also have to acknowledge that it's up to Delirium as to whether they include them in the program or not. Remember, y'all, this is all before they're even picked to be a participant. They're not being a part of programs. They're agreeing to be 18. They're agreeing to go under these medical examinations, and they still haven't even been picked to be on the show. The participants have to agree that they will go on these literal blind dates because they cannot see the person. They're talking through a wall. They have to acknowledge that they may not meet anyone, although their purpose of being on this love show is to find a connection. Although it's the premise of the show, it's still crazy to me that the participants have to agree that if they meet someone, they agree to get engaged and let the camera crew follow them around for 4 weeks. Now, I understand that that's the premise of the show, but what if I just like the person? Why do I have to agree to actually marry them? That's what you signed in the contract, so you have to do it. Let's talk about some of the consequences that come with just being on the show. The agreement includes something called a liquidation clause. Actually, it includes 2 liquidation clauses. The first liquidation clause has to do with actual performance on the show. The participants cannot just leave the show when they want to. If a participant needs to leave the show, they have to let Delirium know why. And if it's something that is reasonable to Delirium, such as if someone's life is in danger, which Renee Poche alleged, or if you have an immediate family member die, they may say that's reasonable and you don't have to pay the liquidation damage. Now, what is the number for the liquidation damage? It is $50,000. These people who are agreeing to participate in a production will have to pay Delirium $50,000 if they decide they can no longer do the show and Delirium decides that their reasoning is not reasonable. And if you ask me, Renee's reason for leaving the show was very reasonable. But according to Renee's lawsuit, the production actually pressured her to continue and threatened that she would have to pay if she quit the show. Not only will the participants have to pay $50,000 if they decided to leave the show early, but they also had to agree to be filmed 6 to 7 days per week for up to 60 hours per week. That is insane. And what makes it worse is that the participants, well, at least Renee, was only paid $8,000 for her time on the show. It would be paid $1,000 per week for as long as she was on the show. So if she only did the pod section, she might get $4,000 because she didn't make it to the engagement section. The thing about Renee is that she did make it into engagement, but they cut her part out of the show because of the violence that she suffered during the actual filming of the show. And although they wouldn't let her leave the show to protect her, they decided to cut out her portion pretty much entirely likely to avoid backlash on the situation. The show also offered to pay travel expenses as long as it was out of the Houston area. If it was any travel within the Houston area, the participants would have to pay that themselves. The participants were responsible for making sure to take out their own taxes and to indemnify Delirium, meaning that if the participant was to get in trouble for not taking out the right amount of taxes and Delirium got brought into the situation, the participants will basically pay them back for having them brought into the situation. As we talked about earlier, the premise of the show is to get engaged. After the engagement period of 30 days, the participants have to decide if they want to get married. Let's say the participants decide to get married, but a few months later, they decide that they want to get a divorce. Delirium is so kind that they are willing to pay $5,000 for any uncontested divorce, meaning that if the divorce is contested, they're not going to pay the $5,000. The participants will be responsible for paying their own divorce fees. Not only will Delirium only pay for uncontested divorces, but the couples cannot even divorce until after the last episode has aired or 11 months after the wedding date, whichever one is later. One interesting part of when the episodes are airing is that the participants cannot wear their wedding rings and they have to log out of their social media while the episodes are coming out to the public. If the parties decide that they do want to divorce, the parties have to notify Delirium within 6 months of their wedding, or Delirium will have no obligation to them. The participants also have to agree that they will not claim alimony, assets of the other partner, and they will waive the right to health insurance being paid by the other participant. This part of the contract literally shocked me. Delirium tries to get rid of all of their liability, and Delirium makes the participants agree to waive any liability against Delirium if they contract an STD. Delirium also has the participants waive the liability for Delirium against crew members and other production members of the cast, which was Renee's legitimate issue. She was being put in danger by one of the cast members and Delirium did not protect her. And Delirium unmeaningfully allowed the participants to report safety concerns even though they never did anything about it, and Renee said that she told them multiple times. Now we're going to get into the second liquidation clause, which includes publicity and confidentiality. In agreeing to participate in the show, the participants had to agree that they will not give any interviews without Delirium's permission. They also had to agree to deactivate their social media accounts pending the airing of the shows. There was also a confidentiality clause which pretty much told the participants that they cannot talk about Delirium, the show, the cast members, the workers on the crew, anybody relating to the things that happened during filming or the show in general. They also made the participants agree on behalf of third parties like their family, friends, associates, that they also could not breach the confidentiality relating to anything that the participants went through on the show. The only way that the participants can talk about things that came about from the show is to get written permission from Delirium, who is clearly trying to hide all of their dirt. And get this, if the participants did violate these publicity rights and confidentiality rights, they would be sued for $1 million per breach. And they did it. They sued Renee Poche for 4 breaches. They sued her for $4 million and only paid her $8,000 to even be on the show. No royalties, no nothing, but they're suing her for $4 million as if she made a good penny off of this show when she wasn't even aired. If you do not think that agreement is crazy for people who have not even been selected to be on the show, they probably forgot they even signed this thing before they got on the show, yet the producers are constantly throwing it in their face and threatening them allegedly, according to Renee Poche's lawsuit. And half the time, the people do not even know what these things mean. You mean to tell me that if I quit the show, I have to pay $50,000? If I talk about the show in a way that Delirium doesn't like, I have to pay $1 million? It's completely ridiculous. I am glad that Renee is bringing the case to the court to basically invalidate the arbitration clause. Renee is basically saying that this contract is unconscionable and it should not be upheld by the court. She should be able to sue and she should not have to pay Delirium $4 million because they subjected her to danger by making her stay allegedly with Carter Wall, who seemed to have some serious issues. If you want to know more about what was in the actual complaint, make sure you check out the live stream link below, where I go through all of the facts in the complaint in its entirety and everything that Renee is alleging that Delirium did and the environment that she suffered through by being on the show. As I stated before, this is not the only lawsuit that is going on. There are several people suing Love is Blind right now. Renee Poche is just the one that gave us access to the contract. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. After hearing all this, would you ever sign up to be on Love is Blind? At this point, I don't even think I'll sign up to be on any love show, which I can't because I'm married. But anyways, you guys know what I mean. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. I will see you on the next video. Bye.